People were connecting all that.
All right.
The East Coast.
Board is now in session. We are to our budget markup work session. Final work session of the budget season, y'all. And this is our time to work through the budget. We've got the manager's budget, and now we're going to make it our own. We've been having a lot of conversations, a lot of back and forth. We haven't quite yet settled on what we're doing. I have what's called the chairman's mark here, which I will work through. It will not be particularly smooth because it's just been coming together in the last few minutes, so not much time to rehearse. But I thought we would go through that, and I'll go through parts of it, I think, and just talk about a few items that jump out at me, see if colleagues have anything particular they want to say, and then we will get to the part of having additions. And I know you all have some information in front of you. We can talk about additions or deletions. And staff is here to support us. And Mark, would you remind us exactly where we have to be at the end of this? Because there's some thought about, well, maybe we can, do some votes on Saturday, which I may have not quite characterized exactly right, because we really kind of have to finish today, I think.
I'm going to try to channel Richard here as effectively as I can.
Okay, he's here.
But we'll put what we do when we finish up with the markup here. He'll go back to the board report for the real estate tax rate, and all those we'll send to you. But we have an appropriations resolution that the board has to adopt on Saturday. It actually has precise dollar amounts by department. So that's what we work on. Now, I'm going to say this. It doesn't mean on Saturday that you can't change your mind, but what happens then is we have to come back and have you readopt potentially readopt the resolution, which gives a lot of agita to the treasurer and figuring out all the final numbers. So we strongly urge you to try to settle on the overall numbers today. In my doing 18 budgets here, can't recall a time where the board actually made a change on say, it doesn't mean you can't. No one's going to arrest you.
No, we can, you always say,
Richard will just drink like a lot of Tang nonstop.
you always tell us we can do whatever we want, Mark.
Do we have a budget for that? It's ongoing, right?
We do have an ongoing TANG budget, we do.
Just got a new container, so.
Yeah, okay, good to go. All right, we'll get started. I wonder, colleagues, if we should start, Mark, I was just thinking really quickly summarizing where schools are, because I'm not sure when we should do that. I wonder if this is a good point, if you want to do I didn't give you a warning, but it just occurred to me seeing this here, that maybe this is the time to just sort of do a quick summary of where they are and what we can do if things don't go great in Richmond. Is that okay? Right?
Okay.
Sorry to not give you a warning about that.
Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Emily to go through. We sent you all a copy of the school board's proposed 25 budget slide, and we'll give a summary of where we were with my initial proposal and where we are with the additional funds that became available in mid-year and third quarter. And
Sure.
Okay.
So in the school board's proposed budget, in their presentation, they just gave a summary of what revenue had changed on their side and then balanced to that revenue. So from the original superintendent's budget, there was an addition of a one-time and ongoing county revenue, one-time of 7.8 million, ongoing of 2.7, and then the additional revenue from the 1.5 cents that was included in the manager's proposed budget.
And can I ask that we project that?
And could you put on your microphone, Ms. Cunningham, would you turn on your microphone so the thousands watching can hear you?
Anonymous. Could we project that so people can follow along was the question.
in 1 second.
In a second.
Yeah. I think what's helpful here to know is that, they had a budget and then a lot, I think it sounds like about 10 million total came in more, but they don't know from the state, right? They're getting.
Okay, so here's the slide I was reading from. So the additional county revenue for the 1.5 cents is 9.6 million. And then the state has taken some actions in the General Assembly's budget that add an additional 9.5 million of funding for schools. Now, if the board adopts an additional tax rate change, that will also add to the funding that is flowing to schools.
And then they're waiting to get how much from the state? Are you able to, because that's sort of a question, right?
Yeah, that's.
Is it the summation of those?
Yes, the bottom, those three numbers at the bottom was 7.9, the 6,204,
There it is.
and the 1.48.
It's 9.5 million.
9.5.
Okay, yeah. From the state.
8 plus 1.5.
That's right.
Okay, which is not something that would, I mean, if the state didn't come through, didn't even pass a budget at all, which seems beyond the pale, but you never know, we actually could probably find some contingency funds and things if we absolutely had to. I think it's very unlikely. I mean, we have emergency funds.
They have contingents as well.
That's right, they do have
They
some.
could potentially reallocate from. I'm not sure of the balance is there, but they didn't fully allocate all of the one-time money that came through this process. They held back in this presentation about 1.8 million that the county's transferring that they didn't do anything with in the school board's proposed budget.
Okay.
So that's another option too.
Yep.
And reserves.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just checking. My assumption is that if the absolute worst happens, the good news being that we don't get much money from the state, that we could manage to help fill that gap and probably be okay. I don't think that's going to happen, but that we could do it. Okay. Colleagues, any more questions on the school's budget at this point, or we'll just plow into our own? We good to go? All right. So we're starting out with, we had some extra money, and the manager has recommended some allocations, which basically in the chair's mark, we have taken. I'm going to just see if there's anything I particularly want to, there's some administrative things to support the court, to support the BZA, and we've got some eviction prevention money, which will be helpful, another mobile outreach support team vehicle, which is, I think, going to be really helpful. Some computer lab conversions in the teen media at
Madam
Arlington.
Chair.
Yes.
Can I
Am reading through
interrupt
the wrong
you?
thing? Yes.
Could we also project? Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Great.
Thank you. I've got my glasses off, so I'm just assuming it's up there. All right, and I am not going line by line, y'all, but I'm going to just kind of try to go down, because I don't think we want to do everything there, but I think it's helpful. And there is a fair amount of money in there for young people and programming, which I will say is something that we are focusing on ourselves in our budget. And we also have a lot for climate and energy focused out in the manager's recommendation. All right. Going on, there is a number of
If I could, I just did
Yeah,
want to
no,
speak to
please.
one
Help me
line
through.
item,
Yes,
not
please do.
because it's more important than anything else, but on line 63, we talk about the speed cameras to school locations. Wanted to level set expectations with the community, because this is an additional 8 cameras for half of the year, and that's 22 photo reds and 18 photo speed. On July 1st, the 40 cameras will not appear. Okay, there's some engineering involved. Our goal is, we have to make sure they're placed correctly. We're going to be there's be a lot of new cameras on Carlin Springs Road, for example. We have to find places where we actually put them so that they're pointed in the right direction. So this is something which we've talked to the board about, which you've made a priority. We're very excited about, but I didn't want people to think that on July 1st it's all going to happen.
Thank you. You're level setting my own record. This was the one I was really going to highlight because I'm the most excited about it. I knew it wouldn't be instant, but I realize it's probably going to be even a lot longer than we would like it to be. But I think it's really crucial we're doing, and I'm really glad that that is in there. Takas, need something you want to add?
And most importantly, it's still, because the whole conversation and the difficulties with the photo speed cameras, which are mobile devices, so the photo reds are, by definition fixed, and they go to
Right,
where
and
it
some of
is.
the photo speed cameras, we may end up deciding on putting them in fixed locations, depending on what we do.
We may, yeah.
Yeah.
But there are 18 photo speed cameras, right, that the extended budget, the
Yes.
extended proposal is going to buy, and this is 18 locations, or, if both
Yes.
ways, 9 locations.
Right.
All right. And once we have speed limits set with these cameras, we can enforce those speed limits a lot better, right? People will,
Well, not only enforce the speed limits, but then also gather data about what's happening.
Right.
Hopefully, it will affect behavior. And I can't emphasize enough, our goal is to get no revenue from these cameras, because everybody will follow the speed limit.
Exactly. It might take a little transition, but hopefully we'll get to that quickly. Thank you. All right, colleagues, I think I'll move on to some additions that we've had now, and we'll kind of work through those a little bit more slowly, I think. We're putting in money for the arts program, and a lot of that, there are a couple of things in here in the board's edition that we've realized that they're programs that they haven't been inflation adjusted, and sometimes like over a decade. And some of these are just kind of to bring things up to where they should be if they had been adjusted for inflation, and that applies to our arts grant program. And then we've got some additional funding for the Clarendon Alliance, the Langston Boulevard Alliance, and helping them. We decided in AED, they were cutting the trade and promotion in their PR budget, and I guess this was mostly me. It just felt like not the right time to do that. We didn't restore it totally, but restored some of that because we still have an office vacancy rate, and we'd like people to come to us from all over. In CPHD, we have a small program here with Stumbling Stones. I think this is a favorite program for all of us, and it's just so cool because it's historical, and it also uses our youth who actually help do the research, and they actually make the Stumbling Stones and the brass markers on top. So it just kind of checks a lot of boxes at once, and it's only $15,000. We are restoring in CPHD a couple of associate planner positions that had been cut as budget saving because CPHD is working really hard and we're adding a lot more work to them. Moving on. Yes, go ahead.
Can I ask something? So I had a short conversation with our budget magicians here about how exactly is the split between ongoing and one time to be interpreted when we plan for these positions. It would be good to repeat that.
Sure, because we're doing that in several other positions as well. Yeah, go ahead.
So I would say we've had a variety of conversations. I think part of the intent is that with the ongoing, the intent is to fund it halfway through the fiscal year, but you're also putting some one-time money that if the opportunity arises that these positions can be filled earlier, then the one-time money is there to support that hiring before January 1st. You're committing because you're putting ongoing funding that this will continue into 26, and when we build the proposed budget, we'll make the assumption, unless you provide different guidance, that these will be ongoing funded positions in the next fiscal year. But I think if you're giving the manager flexibility to hire before January and having one-time money allocated to do that, I think that's perfectly appropriate for these two positions.
The other thing I wanted to mention, and do not underestimate what I'm saying here, literally department directors are listening to this, and if they feel like something gets in the mark, they rush over to HR. They literally do and say, get the position posted so we can get the person in there by July 1st. But sometimes, we make a judgment as to when we think it'll actually happen. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you there's a complete science to all of this. Sometimes it's our best estimate.
Yeah, I understand that there are tasks associated with that, and the tasks don't always kick in exactly on July 1st. It's not like we don't hire the people first before we, describe their jobs. We describe their job and then we hire the people. So that's I understand. But just the next line item is a enforcement inspector, which is all on ongoing. So I guess
This was intended to carry. It was funded with one time, and correct me if I'm wrong, was funded with one time in the manager's proposed budget because we were going to eliminate it in fiscal year 26. The intent was to permanently get rid of the position, but we were carrying this through, possibly for retirement, through the fiscal year, so we budgeted one-time money. Now with this action, once that individual retires or leaves service, with ongoing funding, it will continue into 26 as an ongoing position. Little different situation on this.
It is indeed. We may come back to that. Okay, and then CPHD again on one-time funding for historic interpretation support. We had a lot of interest in a number of smaller programs, which colleagues may want to talk to, but they just didn't have time to kind of work out exactly how it should go, and very hesitant to put in a little money here, a little money there for something we're not quite sure what it would be for. And I know Cynthia Lisa Storrs could certainly use some help in her shop, and people are more and more interested in history, and that's what this $70,000 is hoping to do, give her some support to get things in place that need to be want to be handled. And I don't know if anybody wants to talk to any of those. We'll move on. And we're at
Madam Chair, just
yeah,
a
Matt.
process question. I've been thinking I would let you go through the mark and then come back. but
That's fine.
Okay.
Yep, that's probably better because, yeah, we'll do that, then we can come back. Although if you have something, small comment, but if you want to make a change to it, then that's fine. We can come back to that. Let's see, we've got AHIF funds. We're working on getting some in one particular project. We think we can get 7 more units at 30% of AMI, and obviously we're working towards getting 10% of all of our committed affordable at 30% AMI. if possible, but we're not there yet. We put in 2 positions asked for by our Commonwealth's attorney. Here, a conviction review attorney and a director of restorative justice. That, I think, basically keeps some people that she has now, I believe. Let's see, DES. We want to work on climate action. We're not quite sure that everything that was sort of proposed really makes sense. So what we did was fold some of the money in that was for EV charging into the climate action plan investments, and we're thinking this is for 2 years set aside to work on EV chargers, working on the locations. Some of them may be solar and moving around, and then there are some other issues in there to help trees, et cetera. Does anyone want to comment on this particular item? Because I've not summarized it real well, but if nobody's anxious, I'll keep going. We've heard a lot from folks about the behavioral intervention services program that was being cut, and the board was persuaded that it meets a really important need, but we could see there may have been some issues with the current program and some people are leaving. So we put in some money to try and help a transition and make sure that while it might not be provided the same way it's been provided, the services will still be available to folks. And we put in $75,000 for that. Department expanded neighborhood health, which provides great health services, and we wanted to keep that going. Food security mini grants. Hunger continues to be an issue here. Food is expensive, life is expensive, so we put in some mini grants there. Besides the support, of course, we're giving to AFAC and other organizations. We put in a little money to market existing sexual reproductive health services from our public health division, and the services are there. It's just that people don't know about them. So we're hoping that $25,000 can help kind of market what we've got there and help people take advantage of the services that we have. On our NOFA for our nonprofit, we're putting in we're putting in $350. Do we have that right? I think so. I won't talk about that too much. We'll come back to it. That's fine. Thank you. Yeah, I'm looking over quickly at my notes. Wait a minute. And then for the Board of Equalization, this is another group that has been just not kept up with inflation, so we're increasing the rate for the members. They work really hard, and it actually matches now what Fairfax is doing per meeting. For Department DPR, Parks and Rec, we've got a youth programming manager who's going to help manage a lot of the funds that we're putting in to get some programming started for youth, mostly in our schools, but it could be in our nature centers or to connect the two. And that's part of our expanding the nature center hours, which is down there to getting them so that they're open more frequently. It should include weekend and after school hours. For the personal trainers, we also heard a lot from people there that it met a need they didn't think they could find elsewhere, and we have put in some money to try to ease that transition, probably moving it into the 55+ program where it seems to belong mostly, but we will let our staff work out how best to manage that transition and hopefully continue to provide pretty much most of the services people like and would like to continue using and need in some cases, but providing them more efficiently and appropriately. Let's see, youth programming pilots. This is again what that manager is going to be doing. This is a one-time funding, but for up to 2 years, give time to sort of set things up and actually make them run. And also a good chunk of money, $1.5 million, to DPR for after-school programs, a pilot with APS, and they will be working closely with APS to work out how those are delivered and design them. We will get on to more money for trees and the tree canopy fund, and we're going to equity focus on neighborhoods. As we know, trees are more prevalent in wealthy areas than in areas where people have less money, and everybody needs trees. For elections, we've got a big election coming up, so we're expanding from 1 to 3 Sundays for early voting this fall, and also increasing the pay for our election workers. Yes, please.
I will say, when I added that in, I had intended for there to be a total of 2 Sundays of early voting. So I don't know if we want to revisit that at the end. I don't
instead of 3?
I don't know if the number that you provided would get us 3 Sundays. I think that was intended to get us 2.
But if it gets us 3, we'll take it. Yeah.
Each additional Sunday is $5,000.
Oh.
Yep, so you've got 2. And there's 1.
So there is 1 in, souls to the polls, and 2 additional ones.
Yep.
So basically, the entire month of October
Would have-
will be Sunday voting.
Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
You got a bonus, Maureen.
Did we communicate with election?
Gretchen? Is she okay with that?
Okay.
But she's aware that this inquiry is out there and helped develop the numbers, but we haven't
But we
communicated
haven't,
this
the
particular.
final
Yeah,
landing.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
It should not come as a shock to her, at any rate.
No.
No, yeah, okay, all right. We are looking at reconfiguring our own space in the county board office. For years and years and years, we've said that there needs to get daylight in there because we've got staff that works hard and stays in there a lot of hours of the day, and a little daylight would help. So we are going to just start a study, so not much, just a little reconfiguration of the office. Putting in, we're suggesting there's some extra one-time money to put in additional reserves, which will help us with our double, triple A bond rating, I think. We are increasing the family leave benefit for paid leave from 10 weeks to 16 weeks. We hope that's a good benefit for our employees and should help actually attract and retain employees and make their lives a little easier when they have babies or illnesses, et cetera. We're going to kind of thank you for the Women's Commission for coming in and suggesting that we put period products dispensers in our bathrooms. We hadn't even thought of it, and we're going to put them in. We're transitioning AIM to all one-time funding as they get themselves organized. There are space revisions that need to be made in the courts to make I think it's the fourth floor, much better for our youth and family court, and we're putting in $500,000 to help that happen. And just a little addition to there's a regional adult probation and parole supplement to help supplement the pay of the employees. We share that with Falls Church, so we're putting in $50,000 to help improve their pay and hope that Falls Church might do the same. I think that brings me to the end of the chair's mark. Did I miss anything that we need to go over? All right. Now, there are things below the line, and I think maybe I'll just sort of see who wants to bring them up. And just because it's there, don't feel like you have to talk about it. You might change your mind. So there's we've had a lot of discussions back and forth, and let's see where we go. At this point, again, the bottom line, I think we have, 1.6 million in ongoing and 21,000 in ongoing and 1.6 million basically in. And that's, thank you, based on 1.8 cents. Yes, I forgot to mention that extremely important point. A 1.8 cent increase rather than the 1.5 that the manager recommended. All right, colleagues. Let me know who's ready to go first.
Madam Chair, I'm happy to.
Okay, Matt?
Thank you. I think, let's see. First, I'm thrilled that the economy has gone well and we both have more ongoing and one-time than we thought. I guess, do you want to take line items and then the tax rate, or do you want to do tax rate?
Oh, I think we better do line items and figure out where we are and then see how what
Sure.
that does to the,
So-
if it gives people heartburn, we may go back and revisit the lines.
Sure, so line 70, let's see, I think, line 75 and 76, I'd support moving them both to ongoing permanent positions. That reflects all the work session discussions.
Tell me which one those are, because I'm not, the numbers aren't.
It's CPHD, the Associate Planner for Current Planning and Comprehensive Planning. Those two positions, I think, moving them forward would have benefits in terms of, I know we've had each been briefed on stormwater issues and issues relating to residential neighborhoods, but it's line 75 and 76 where we've taken them to mid-year, and I think we've heard from our economic development folks, and in general, I would be in support of moving them to starting full-time July 1st. So that's lines 75 and 76. I think that, go ahead.
Can I jump in with a question?
Yeah.
Is there a benefit to the approach as it's currently listed in terms of splitting between one-time and ongoing versus, you know, if we can't hire until later in the year, which happens all the time, we do recoup some of that cost at closeout anyways.
right,
So
absolutely.
I guess, what are the merits of doing it one way versus the other?
They're both brilliant approaches to the same issue, so.
We only
Really-
do
So
brilliant
what-
things
It's,
here.
it's really just a matter, you know, as I said before, if you think we'll do our best to get them on board July 1st, then probably makes sense to have it as ongoing, but if you're not quite sure, which we weren't in this case, I'm not going to sit here and tell you one's right and the other's wrong, so.
It's a way of taking lapse and turnover before you actually get it.
Right.
And we may not get it, but it also is a way of not reserving some money that you can't spend, which, when you're tight on ongoing, seemed like a good idea.
Okay.
That was why I did. So I would like to keep it the way it is in the chairman's mark, but I don't, it won't prevent us from getting the employees, so.
Sure. So, I mean, for me, the urgency of some of our planning work and our economic development work, planning work, some of which we've discussed on residential, what has been called lot coverage. And that doesn't mean we'll have the employees on July 1st, but, you know,
But if we put in the ongoing, I mean, if we put in the one time, that we can do that. That's the point. If we put in the one time, we can get them right away if we can do it.
From a funding point of view, this is funded the entire year.
Yeah.
And you're making the commitment that it will continue ongoing.
Sure, but if it's a partial, I mean, if it is partial ongoing, it's not ongoing from the start, right? We are, everywhere else, we are supposed to wait to get lapse and turnover benefits. Not here. Is that?
Right, that was just
Sure.
a way of getting us to where I thought we could
Just
get
to the
without
manager,
actually.
it's
putting it in.
appropriate in this situation. You're signaling that it's an ongoing position. You've just made allowances that it can be hired as of July 1st. The source just happens to be one time, but it's, the
Sure.
ongoing kicks in.
Sure.
Yep.
I mean,
Marcus?
we understand, I mean, I fully understand that this doesn't affect the viability of this position for this year. What it possibly affects is, you know, the base for next year. And there is a strong feeling here that these two positions are really for the long haul. So that's the basic thing. And you know, I kind of understand that we want to be a little bit more frugal when we commit ongoing money in any given iteration of this budget. So if the bottom line of this chair's mark is, what was it, 21?
It wasn't enough to cover 6 months.
Yeah, exactly. This wasn't, so this is basically a maneuver to fit it
Yep.
in this specific budget.
Absolutely.
It's not
Yes.
essential. So I would keep that on for moving it ongoing if we decide to go a little bit over that for other good reasons.
Okay, because you'll have to come up with another way to handle it.
Yes.
Yep.
Sure.
Okay, all right. Anything, so Matt, Susan, do you have one? What do you want to do? I'll just keep going back and forth with people. That's fine. Susan?
So on
Matt?
number 78, we had a little discussion on this one time. This is the historic funding, and I think it is, I don't know how best to handle it. I'm interested in one-time funding for our Black Heritage Museum, our Arlington Historical Society, and the property that we acquired that is known colloquially as the Bottom. This is a one-time effort exclusively, but that's, and I don't know how best to connote it, but I'm
I think we
interested.
can put that in budget guidance, what we're hoping for on that and what we're looking at. One of my thoughts on this one was that particularly on the Bottom and some other things that we're doing, Cynthia just needs more support. Like, we could get a really good grant. We might get a grant writer. The small amount of money wouldn't really necessarily provide that. And it felt like a way to really just beef up the history office and allow them to support a lot of different things, including those that we want to do. It seemed more effective because she can think things through, study through it, and do it in a more intentional way that probably would be more effective with the money. That was my thinking on that.
Sure, and I respect that. I'm not sure I'm fully aligned with that, because this is a case where I've had numerous conversations, and with respect to the Black Heritage and the Historical Society, I think 15,000 towards the record and the project that we all do support is helpful. I would add an additional 25,000. And this is an area where staff is excellent. We put 100,000 into the historic resources inventory without blinking an eye. But this is where I want those three to be clearly, in the case of Black Heritage and the Historical Society, you need a 3-page agreement, and then it is a grant to those two entities. That is not staff time. In the case of the bottom, we are still working on how it can be the least burdened to our historic group, but that's where I am on those three issues, not in a place of saying that, in this case, much as I respect staff, this is not a case where I defer to staff.
Okay, all right. I'm not comfortable with that. Feels to me like professional staff knows better, despite all the conversations, but that's just me. Takas.
So, Madam Chair, and actually with Ms. Coffey together, we visited the Historical Society just not too long ago. Both the Black Heritage Museum and the Historical Society in their respective buildings and operations, et cetera, they're in kind of a transition right now. So I think that the motivation of Mr. De Ferranti to quote unquote, not really, but quote unquote, earmark this $25,000 was actually to help them to complete these renovations and, to attain an order of function, normal order of function again. Sooner rather than later. They have a lot, they are really two institutions here that we haven't still found a way to support them properly, to have a mark of support, especially after we did the update of our historic, the update of the historic resources plan. I tend to be supportive of this request to earmark this money. I don't know if we can write it into guidance.
We can, I believe. Mark, sorry, we can put it in guidance. Yeah.
We can do that with guidance if.
Yep, and we will be drafting the guidance over the next few days.
Happy to put it in guidance. Just want to be very clear that of the preference, and I really appreciate, Madam Chair, that you point out we have outstanding professional staff in this area, and I do respect staff. I just, in this, happen to have a different view, and so we can put it in guidance as long as it's clear.
Yep, I just want to make sure that the ladies on either end agree, because I still don't agree.
Sure.
Maureen, are you feeling like we need to earmark everything?
I think if we are content with explicit guidance, I am I would align myself with Mr. Karantonis' remarks in terms of the concerns about facilities for both Black Heritage Museum and the Arlington Historical Society. And I think, to me, we have other historical funds and processes that are going to be awarded competitively and that we've done a planning process for. But these are two particular concerns that I have that I think we need to make sure we take care of.
Okay, all right, I think you got it. We'll put it in guidance, unless you want to say something, Ms. Cunningham.
I was just going to add that I think there's a couple principles I'd like us to try to apply as much as possible. One is that we do fund things within departments so that they can be strategically planned and executed. So I agree with the chair in that channel. Secondly, we've had some conversation, Mr. Manager, about sort of third spaces and community gathering spaces in general. The library's study is kicking off or has kicked off. I would very much like us, and perhaps we can weave this into guidance, but to think about how can we do a community-wide survey of the nonprofits, sort of an inventory of what's there, and an understanding of how all these spaces can be maximized for community use, whether they're privately held, publicly held, and then given that, what are the right levels of capital support, which would probably fit into the capital improvement plan.
Okay, sounds like future discussions on that one, and that to be refined. All right, so it will at least go into the department budget so that they can, Cynthia she'll be clear where the money is supposed to go, but she can sort of determine how it gets done, because I trust her more than people who don't have these professional positions to decide those things.
100%. We did have a sliver of conversation with Ms. Flanagan Watson about not wanting the funding for the bottom to in any way burden the staff. And so there's a very remote chance that there might be a desire to access other departments to help. But I will fully work that through with Ms. Flanagan Watson and Ms. Leach's Torres. There was the staff capacity concern, and so I want to be very mindful of that. But I will run it all through you and try to make sure that it's referred there. But there is a challenge in that that I just wanted to surface.
Okay.
We'll do it your way.
Okay, well, that's fine. I just want to make sure,
Yep.
don't act as a staff person.
Yes.
So please to keep the board in the loop, and also the manager who actually manages things. Okay. All right, next item. Takis.
Would it be appropriate to talk right now about an item that we have been discussing a lot? These are retention boni or bonuses for.
Yeah, it's not Latin or Italian, I think.
Yeah. AC, for fire department, police departments, sheriff's department. The discussion about that started with the sheriff's department because I believe that through testimony and constant contact with the sheriff's department and its various and multifaceted needs, we found out that a retention bonus is something that we should consider affording to the department. And I think that there was some thinking among colleagues here to do that for all uniformed employees, that is, including the PD and the fire department. A $3,000 retention bonus would add, in the case of the Sheriff's Department, $968,000. In the case of the Police Department, $1.3 million, and in the case of the Fire Department, almost $1.6 million, $1.59 million. So this is a significant chunk of money from one time, and I have to say that. While I'm absolutely convinced that the Sheriff's Department is absolutely in need of that, I am persuaded to consider the other departments as well. The Fire Department, because we heard here about the difficulties to retain personnel, that they have had not the best year in retaining employees. Same for the police department. And I also was persuaded by, especially the fire department, hearing that they have to do, that they're, the clocking of overtime and compulsory overtime has been more than usual. So I'm persuaded to support that. I know that Mr. DeFerranti has worked a lot on this and actually has introduced the proposal here. So I just wanted to bring it up.
Yeah, thank you. I think we can wrestle this one. I am all right doing it for the Sheriff's Department. The sheriff requested it. He is a separately elected official. When it comes to police and fire, that I keep wondering what happened to collective bargaining. And I don't know if the manager wants to speak to it. I know he's at this point feeling that the retention bonuses are not nearly as effective as hiring bonuses, which he's put in. Mark, I don't know if you want to speak to that at this point or not.
Well, because I know a lot of the workforce is listening, in the last 2 years, and I don't have the numbers right in front of me, we paid about $18 million overall in fiscal 23 and 24 in bonuses to the organization. It's not money poorly spent. However, I will have conversations with people and where I'll say, do you remember how much you got in a bonus last year? And they go, no, I don't really remember. Doesn't mean it doesn't have impact, but I think that I'm not a huge fan of it, but I will say that if you're going to do it, I think you need to do it across all uniform staff. That's really my view. I think I said that the other day.
Yeah, you did. So can I have a little debate with you, if I might?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So just from a governance viewpoint, if we're doing collective bargaining, this feels like it's outside of that. It was to get away from us being lobbied every year. And if we do this, I'm just going to say, I'm not going to be here, you guys, but you're going to get visited every year as if.
Right. Now,
but that's okay.
Because that was part of your question about collective bargaining.
Right. But sheriffs don't.
Yeah,
they're different.
and I will probably be proven wrong about saying this, which is that under the collective bargaining ordinance that the board adopted, I think that it requires me to engage in bargaining with the representatives of the bargaining units. The final authority about appropriation rests with the county board, so the county board can exclude itself from any negotiating process and simply put something in as something that it wants to do. So I think we also, and I've commented on this before, find ourselves in the situation where we do bargain very hard over these agreements, and then if the board chooses to come in and add funds for it, I think that raises a small question, not a huge question, about the effectiveness of what we've been engaged on over the last few years. I've probably been doing this for too long to understand that that's just the way it happens. It doesn't cause me an incredible amount of heartburn, but you are right. With the sheriff is not subject to collective bargaining, and that's absolutely, really the only lever the board has with the sheriff is money.
Yeah.
Because you can't tell him what to
to
do.
do. No, that's all right. So and I've been here too long too, and I'm leaving. I will just say it has felt to me, particularly with fire, they're not bargaining in good faith. And this just kind of rewards that, which I'm not comfortable with. People may not agree. I think our fire are wonderful. I would like to pay them more and work on ways to do it. I want to work it within a structure because I think it's healthier in the long term for governance and for the organization. But that's where I am. And if we do fire, we need to do police. I would be comfortable doing just sheriff. So there I am. Susan.
I'd just like to add, I think the discomfort about getting into a cadence with collective bargaining really being the negotiation is it's important that we all have that discomfort, and I think our uniformed public servants do as well, because we've only done it once and we didn't do it perfectly on any side. So while I desperately wish that we had kept open an option for a midterm reopen for the first term, so that we could have really just built this in and probably built it in a different place than in bonus, probably in pay compression or someplace that's actually more appropriate. I can support, for this 1 year doing it this way, but I would like to say that in the next collective bargaining, I'd like us to get it more right. And if we're not sure we have, maybe leave an option for mid-agreement.
Only because you brought it up, and it's not relevant to anything, but with both the fire union and the police union, they did offer the opportunity for reopening the agreements. But in the give and take of the negotiations, that did not end up in the final agreement for lots of good reasons and lots of bad reasons.
Right, understood. And again, we're all learning, and it's a little bit messy. And I think the intent is good all around. We all deeply value our folks, and we want to be as supportive as possible while we get through. Probably the most important money in all of this is the hiring efforts, both people and systems and marketing dollars and bonuses, because the best retention investment for our public servants would be getting all of those positions filled, so there isn't the need for as much overtime, and in some cases mandatory overtime. So I want to keep us all focused on that. If you know anyone who wants to be a firefighter, be a police officer, work with the sheriff, send them over.
Yeah.
We would love to have them.
And it looks like you might be getting another bonus this year. Did you want to say anything else, Maureen, on this one?
No, I mean, I think that this is, with the collective bargaining and with the realities of our public service teams, this has been one of the harder conversations I think we've all had. But at the end of the day, I do think that, $3,000 is a lot of money for a lot of people. I think, for me, that's very significant. It's more than a month of rent. It's a month of childcare for some people. And so I think, to the point about, well, people don't remember what they got. They remember they got something. And the way we compensate our employees is the best way to express that we value their work, and that, we also are seeing the hardship that we're putting them through, especially for our uniformed staff who we are asking more and more of. And yes, I absolutely agree that the best retention will be to fill all of the positions, but in talking with staff about how many come in and how many go out over time, I think it's going to take us a little while to get to that full staffing no matter what, and expressing that we have some appreciation for what they're doing and what we're asking them to do now, I think is important, in addition to showing them we are very actively working and we are putting investments in this budget to fill those positions and get this to a better point overall.
Okay, fine. All right, so that's in. We're going to have some balancing to do. Next, guys.
Madam Chair? Just, I appreciate it. I did want to mention that, at least in the intent of this, there was some email back and forth regarding our DHS behavioral health staff, which I also think is on the front lines. And so I wanted to sort of include that in this consideration. And I think that total is 137,000. Oh, is that already in the mark? My apologies.
Isn't that already?
My apologies.
Sorry. Can we confirm that it's in the county manager's recommended?
No,
Oh, that's
just to
hiring.
clear-
My
yeah,
apologies. My apologies.
increasing the hiring bonus because we really struggle with, competition and recruitment for those positions. And then we do have
No problem.
the 137, which is meant to be for those employees who are 24/7, not the entirety. Just so you know, behavioral health or CSB, we were really trying to, that would be a much higher number. But there's a lot of conversations that, as you've heard from DHS, about just across the board for the entirety, and that would be a whole lot more money, and we do not recommend that.
Yep, but it's already in for hiring bonuses.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And
Okay.
then I do think there are details with respect to the amounts.
No, I'm sorry, it's not. It's the 137 you would have to add. Yeah,
Yeah,
137, yeah.
and then if I'm correct, I really appreciate your point on the sheriffs, and I align myself with Ms. Coffey on and the comments on the ACPD and the fire department. I actually think that one time, far more than any ongoing, it aligns with collective bargaining. We have heard quite a bit of advocacy requesting ongoing and a mid-course set of negotiations, and I don't quite support that in this case because I don't, but I also do think that this is a partial piece. There's details, I think the estimate with respect to ACPD and the fire department, there's an estimate of, and I think it's uniformed in most cases, but I think that there's an estimate on the police department, and the nature of our collective bargaining agreement is how I would like to propose that we follow with respect to those two, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, with police, that the $1.38 million number we had in there covers the uniform officers. There's a separate, smaller part of the department that's covered under a separate collective bargaining agreement, service labor trade. So we are focusing on that first part, not the second part.
And then with the fire, I think it's uniformed,
Right,
just so
correct.
we're clear enough. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, that's fine. All right, we've got a lot more. Emily, you're adding all this on? All right. Next,
Right?
Takis?
So something that I have to say, I felt very well with all you colleagues said on this topic. There was quite a unanimous spirit on this. So that's line 94. This is 1.5 million for DPR after-school programs. So what I wanted to make sure is that we comprehend the investment that in this budget is made into after-school youth and mental health. So it's 1.5 million for after-school programs pilot with APS. There is in the notes section, it says something about assume 500,000 per year for 3 years. I was understanding that this will be a amount of money that is going to be available now in this year already, and we expect that the department will be able to deliver program proposals for that. Do I understand it correctly or incorrectly?
To spend 1.5 million in 1 year for after-school programming, that is.
I think your question was 500, right, 1,000 per year?
Can I clarify my understanding and see if you can fix it? So I think what is in the chair's mark is a combination of things. In the proposed budget, there's already the current pilots that are run by DPR for after-school, out-of-school time. That's about 500,000, and there's some rounding error there. In the chair's mark, there's an additional roughly 500, I think it's 480, for DPR to continue to expand and iterate on those pilots. Might be different things. It might be expanding participation in some that are working. It may be their own people. It may be NOFAs. So they are working on that piece. And the intent is that that's at least a year. They may spend it this year if they can, but it would also carry into next year if we're basically don't spend it just to spend it, like really iterate the pilots to get them right.
Yeah.
And then the last piece that is in the chair's mark is the 1.5 million. That is intended as a set aside for APS to run a NOFA process or to tell us what they want us to do for them on site at APS schools. The thought being that it is a cleaner kind of management structure to make sure that that sits within APS, but we would provide the funding. They can do it either as 1 year or as 2 year or 3 year NOFAs, but giving them that flexibility. And the idea is roughly $500,000 a year.
And just to add on a little bit more, thank you, Susan. They're all kind of folded in together, the 90, 91, 93, and 94. And the youth programming manager, in part, there are a lot of different things going on. The programming manager is to help manage it all. So that's the idea, a lot more resources with some managing capacity to make it happen.
I absolutely understand that, and I didn't insinuate that we are going to instruct you to spend that money. We're making the money available for this is the runway within we expect the programs to grow, and like it happened before, the staff and the community will calibrate what is feasible, what's absorbable, etc. So the 5 positions here is the 500,000 that was already proposed in the base budget, and then there are 1.5 million that is line item 94. Then there is, as you very correctly pointed out, Madam Chair, the coordinator position for 2002, the $480,000. That is the DPR Expand Youth Programming Pilots up to 2 years. And the $100,000, by the way, for Arlington Mill, that's DPR, the additional money to equip Arlington Mill in addition, which is a significant addition to Arlington.
And there was also an ad for libraries, and I think
Yes.
if you can read that line.
And I would say also by association, also a significant part of the $185,000 that we're giving for the nature centers will be also helpful there.
Yeah, and this is all in the chair's mark, because I think we all agreed.
So no amendments on that, but.
Can I, sorry.
Yeah, Maureen?
So I guess I am clear on our new youth programming manager being the one to hopefully work through all of this. I'm a little less clear why we're breaking out DPR versus APS as 2 separate buckets. My understanding, at least of prior conversations, had been the goal was to do some sort of NOFA with the money that would be applicable to many options, including working within APS, working outside of APS, working within DPR, working within, and so I think I maybe missed a step here in terms of how we got from that to this.
Thank you for asking. It's accounting, I think. Michelle?
It's meant to be a mix, all of the above, and not dictate right now at this table how to deliver. I think we're looking.
We can build in flexibilities in the guidance, right? Appropriate flexibility.
Correct, but I also think
Also focus.
Let us continue our work with APS. I think the distinction was meant to reflect that there's a desire for after-school program that is schools-based in APS facilities, and wanting to be clear about that versus just having everything in one. We could come back to you and say, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to, we suggest to you how to move that money around once we go through that process. I mean, we are talking with APS every week about what spaces can we have in schools? What are your security requirements? What are your custodial requirements? What do you think works best? Then you get to, what is the staffing? What does the program look like? Do you see what I mean? So I think that's really the intent.
This is not a transfer of funds from us to APS when they request it.
Well, we'll be working with them and coming back to you.
Working with them, yes.
In
but-
partnership, perhaps. They'll request it with us. We'll request it
Yes,
together.
yes. I just am making sure that we are not ceding our management of the programs and the process fully to APS. Like, I don't want us to not have ownership and a stake in this. I don't want us to just push the problem onto APS and hope that they do what we want them to do with it.
That's not what we're doing.
Okay.
I want to be clear.
Okay.
It's collaborative. And
Yeah.
it's two entities, right? We worked well together. It's not what we're doing. So let's see how this plays out.
Okay.
All right, good. So far, everybody's good with the youth programming and the Chair's Mark, right? I hope. Yeah?
The only piece that I would say is that I support the youth programming fully. I support the nature centers. I think that they can cross-pollinate and work together, but I don't want them to start together, because I do want this to be schools-based. I loved Outward Bound. I think that's a unique program, but that's just the thought there in that I don't mind if there is one at the Nature Center, but there has to be, for me, in guidance, and I may be alone, and I think you said this, Ms. Cowan, it has to be at schools as well.
Right, I think Ms.
Yeah.
Coffey said that. I think
Sure.
we're all
Thank you.
clear on that. Yeah,
Thank you.
okay. All right, thank you. Next.
I can continue.
Yeah, go ahead. That's
So-
fine. I think
I have the role.
the Chair's gotten hers out, so I'm not doing this.
My role is to bring up the items on which has been discussion and continues to be discussion.
Yes.
So line item 79, this is the specific AHEB funds to specifically buy down as a pilot to 30% AMI, 30% AMI units. The Chair's Mark is affording 500,000, line 79. This is good for about 7 units, which corresponds to the deliverables in one project, that's Crystal Houses. I personally believe that we should up this amount to $1 million, so I'd add 500,000 from one time to give it a meaningful scope. And to see whether the special rider on AHEF appropriations, whether specifically calibrated to buy down to this deep affordability, is a workable path to eventually try to scale in the future. That's my proposal here.
Okay, and then I question for staff, what will that do? An extra 500,000, because I know with the first 500,000, we've got
7
units, and we've
units.
set 7 units, it's kind of identified, we know what will happen, I don't know
Yeah,
beyond
I
that.
think at this point, we're going to try. So Emily's been doing this. We'll go to the bottom line, and you'll see that little number in parentheses? That's a negative number. So you have to direct us where to find $2.5
Oh,
million in one-time money.
we're going to come to that. Yeah. So you didn't answer my question, though, which was about, because that is, it
What
is
does that
important. Where are we
mean?
going to get that 5? What does that mean? So we've got
Oh, okay.
identified seven units, that we know kind of how that's going to work, and we can see how it plays out. If we put in an extra 500, I don't know that we know exactly where that's going to go and how it's going to play out and what we'll do.
We don't, but I think that there are projects in the pipeline coming where we know, I will tell you that, and I've said this when I proposed the housing budget, if you could put in a lot more money and it would go to good use, okay? And this is
But
an
we still
example.
need more.
Well, yeah, we
Yeah.
just need to find the source of money. So if the first 7 are going to be in Crystal Houses, then, the next 7 would be in the next project in the pipeline. I'm not going to identify it specifically now because that's really up to the board to determine.
Yeah, okay, all right. So I'm mindful of the bottom line, but we can see where we all are. I don't know if anyone else wants to put in another 500,000 for this particular line item, or wait till next year?
Madam Chair, you're kind. I know this is not simple. I'm not trying to be a staff person, but I have had a conversation in the last 36 hours.
Oh, you know where it's going to go, that's fine.
No, I don't know where it's going to go. We worked on what Ms. Byrd and Ms. Flanagan-Watson suggested, not judging what would occur, but is that we might come up with guidance language that would continue the effort so that this additional 500,000 or the full 1 million could be for projects that reach this 10%. I am not at a place yet where on Barcroft, we did the right thing, I think, in managing the cost there. I'm not at a place yet where I think that I know enough to say that I am there on all the financials, but of 10% as a policy, but I want to move us more from one-offs towards a policy that gets there, because I think on the continuum of housing, some very affordable units are necessary. I think the evidence is overwhelming that concentrating deeply affordable housing in one place is bad policy. But I do think so I'd be happy to come back.
So do you want to put, okay, so do you want to put the next?
I do want to put the additional 500,000, and then I
Okay.
would want everyone to see the guidance that staff
Yeah,
works
oh, of
toward.
course, we will put in the guidance, thank you.
Can I add one thing on
yeah.
this? Because I think I've talked to several about you. I actually completely agree with what you're saying as a matter of policy, but Mr. Camerontonis and I have talked about this. We've done a survey of all the current APA and AHC tenants, and over 50% of them in the units are at 30% of AMI or below. The question is, what's the best way to make that happen? We're doing a lot of it through housing grants, and the question is whether we want to buy down at the beginning. And I think this is a debate that may go on for thousands of years, but it's a legitimate debate about where your incremental dollars go. So I fully respect that, and I don't know exactly what the right number is, but I think will all be money well spent towards the point you made, Mr. DeFranci.
Okay, so we're going to have to make some bottom line adjustments at some point, but does everybody want just to keep moving, everybody wants
Yeah.
500 in right at the moment?
Yes.
Yes, okay, all right. The 500, an extra 500, so that's $1 million in one time for non-specific AHIF funds. Our clerk has asked that we're a little bit clear about what goes in there. It's line 79. Okay? Yeah. Next.
I'll be happy to, I'm trying to
good.
figure out the line that is the equity NOFA. We're currently set at
The line 88.
88.
Yep, and that one, I think we're getting some more information. Yep.
Oh, sorry.
We're okay with whatever it is. I want
On our sheet, it's 88.
first make clear that I have several cuts that I'm going to suggest without being a bad person, but when I was budget chair for the schools, some members wanted to not pass a balanced budget, which was infuriating to me. So I have cuts,
You
but
don't have that choice.
we don't. And so, but I think that the equity NOFA has been much discussed. We're putting 1.5 in the base. I would like to move that to 1 million, because I think that equity benefits when we do what we can to make it additive, rather than, particularly in this first year, rather than subtracting oriented. We have had a practice of funding some organizations. We're moving towards a rubric and a more structured and disciplined system, but I think that the integrity of the system will be best, and I do think that investing additionally in equity is useful. So I would move it from 350,000 to 1 million.
All right, thank you. Takis, would you like to talk to this item? Because you did those calculations on getting it to the 350,000, correct? I think on line 88.
The staff has given us yesterday some insight on how we could enhance the awards, or distribute the awards from the NOFA. And there was a proposal to cap the maximum award to $200,000 or $250,000. I think $200,000 fits the vast majority of proposals here, and then only partially fund those who didn't make the first grade, who were above the mode of 40. And I found that, based on staff's calculation, that the total award would be $2.4 million. 1.5 we have appropriated already. The chair's mark is 350, so the difference would be another 375 or something like that. So if we have $1 million there, we have some wiggle room in the next 48 hours to refine the the concept of awards and.
So you mean you'd like to take it to the 500,000 and then we'll figure out later how to divide it out? Is that what you're thinking?
Exactly, just to provide the.
500 or
You want to take it to 800, I think you said?
From the 350?
From the 350 to
800?
to 1 million. So this is in, 350 is the additional amount of money that we are.
Right, it's already 1.5, if I
Okay.
recollect, right? We're adding 350.
350. Yes, and then
It's 1850.
1850, so that's 2.4.
You want to get it to 2 million? What are you trying to do?
To 2.4,
So you're,
Total of
550,000.
to the 350.
So instead of
Yeah, so
350,
in total.
it would be 800 additional.
Wouldn't that be a simple way to say?
So instead of 350, it would be 900, yes. So I mean,
and I'm fine with that.
All right, well, we've got some real math to do at the end, colleagues, but that's all right. I keep it at 350, but that's my mark. Anybody else want to go to 900 here? Maureen?
You unmuted too.
If that makes you the last one, that's your deciding vote. I think I am comfortable with the chair's mark at the 350, but also open to conversation this week if.
Maureen?
I am at the higher number. I think there's been a lot of conversations, and I think this is one of those fun things where we have, Ms. Cunningham and I have jumped in midstream on something that has been moving for a lot longer than we've been here, but based on what I've seen, I think there's a real desire from the community to do a lot of different things, and I think the additional funding gives us the flexibility and the option to fund some well-rated and also important projects.
Okay, so I think we've got $900,000 there on line, what I have is line 88, I think, for the nonprofit equity NOFA. Okay. Madam Clerk, this all may change. Oh, it may not. We may just have a really big tax increase. So next, go ahead. What do we have next?
I guess I would like to inquire the climate action plan. I'd like to learn more about that because we have the Climate Action Fund, which we've had vigorous debate over the speed with which we can responsibly invest in climate. And we have rolled the Climate Action Fund over a couple of times. And this is not, the staff knows we've shared, we're working on this. But I'm not comfortable with 3 million there because I don't think we can spend it quickly enough, and I would like a short, that's why I'm requesting quarterly briefings, and I would like a short period of review. It's not that I don't care about.
Which line item are you on? I'm sorry.
Sorry, it's line item 83, which is 3 million right now.
Okay.
And I am not super elated about 2 years. I totally get the desire to do a big stroke, a big effort, but I want to, I want to have a rapid effort. And so I wonder if there's a reachable reduction, not because I don't want to put the 3 million in, but I don't think we can easily spend it in 2 years. And I would rather have, because of the Climate Action Fund, I would rather have a smaller amount like 2 million and a shorter time period, ideally
So by
one,
putting in
but
less money, you think we'll move faster?
that's right.
All right. I don't know that I agree, but any other comments, thoughts?
I would advocate for a pretty significant number here and for at least a 2-year commitment. I think that climate resilience is one of the most important elements to our community, to our globe, and in particular to our young people. And it's part of our investment in youth and community well-being to really make progress on this. I would agree that we have not been bold enough and we've not moved fast enough. And so this is an intent to say, with our budget as a strategic document, that we are 100% committed to moving quickly, that we as a board will work closely with the manager, and we will help the manager through the quarterly updates make sure that we do have a plan for using those funds to truly move the needle on climate. Again, as with the youth funding, I think a 2-year or 3-year in that case, a multi-year view is important when you're developing new programs because you want enough run room to be able to try some things, get them wrong, revise them, and get to a set of goals. So I would, I think we can argue about the number a little bit, but I think it's really important that this be one of our largest investments. And like youth, in the guidance, we will roll it up with a whole number of other investments, right? We are investing here, continued stormwater work that's already well underway, but really amping up our energy conservation efforts, both by the county and by residents, and also working on a climate resolution that will help us guide that work for the coming years, and just really nailing it this time and iterating towards it. So that would be my recommendation, is to keep it as is or make it bigger.
Yep. I think monitoring is the way to kind of speed it along, and given the cost of some of the things that are involved in energy, I think it'd be easy to spend $3 million. But Maureen?
So, I mean, I can agree, I can align, which might help us.
Okay.
I will say that I'd love to talk to you at length about the difference between this and the Climate Action Fund after this meeting, but that's a separate conversation.
Yeah, and I think the guidance, there's various degrees of guidance that have been circulated that go into the details. I agree that we need to make sure the guidance is very clear, and Mr. Carantonis and I are working on that, and we'll
Does that help?
have you look at it.
Sure.
Okay, Maureen, did you want anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think the guidance point is kind of where my sticking point is. I just have the question of, like, what is it for? It's a lot of money to put into a bucket that seems very vague and undetermined. And doing climate investments is great, but climate/energy/trees, when we already have many things on climate and trees and stormwater and electric vehicles, and I personally need a little bit more clarity and maybe conversation right now about, like, what are we spending $3 million to do?
So one of the things which maybe wasn't clear, just to make sure that you notice the item above that on the EV charger investment, we took that out and folded it into this $3 million because we weren't quite confident that the placement was quite ready to.
But we also have, I mean, we are currently deploying and actively adding to, and I don't think we're fully taking out the things that we're already doing through PAYGO and capital.
Oh, no, right. No. It was just this one item, just as an example of how much things can cost. That's what
Right,
I'm
no,
saying.
absolutely. I just.
That's fine. Maybe we should invite the manager to talk a little bit about the plan.
Uh-oh.
Like to do that? You didn't think I was going to listen. You just sit there, Mark.
I'm going to have to think about this a little bit. You know, when we proposed the budget, we set aside an additional $1 million for the Climate Action Fund. I will be the first to admit that we had some placeholders and we didn't have necessarily firm ideas what to spend it on. There have been a lot that have come up since in almost the last 2 months. So I can't say specifically right now. I actually could not tell you right now how that $3 million would be spent. I could tell you how pieces of it would be spent. The rest of it, I think, was to be determined, and also to allow, and it's the board's mark, it wasn't mine, but I'm just saying, to allow you all space as you go through the CIP process if you determine additional items. So that's
Thank you.
just a thought.
That's fine.
Madam Chair, I didn't
yeah.
hear whether Mr. DeFerrari had an amendment to this.
I think he's decided he's okay with it after all. Is that what you decided?
What I'd like to do, I thought it was important to try to indicate at this stage of the conversation some fiscal restraint. And so that's why it won't add up if we have 3 million. And this is a choice, unfortunately. Historically, we would put money in AHIF. And if we put 3 million, we will not have extra money to put one time in AHIF. That's okay, but that's a choice we'll have to make. I guess what I would say, Madam Chair, is that I wanted to raise the issue. I withdraw it for now because we have to, as you've said, we have to make this add up. And
Yep, so at the end, this is where you may go. Okay, that's fine. All right, let's with the moment, it will stay in, but then we can.
Just as a footnote, Madam Chair, if you allow for a second,
Yeah?
I think, for me, it's a very teasing. We haven't had very often the opportunity, this board, to work on this kind of numbers, right? So, and it's a welcome change to that. I do appreciate two things. First of all, there is 1 million that we have barely been able to absorb, right? So that's number one. Number two, I shouldn't say that. We haven't been able to absorb. The barely is not the right characterization. Secondly, I do think that you're absolutely right, Ms. Cunningham. This needs more than just guidance. It needs a strategic guidance from the county board. The way we've done it with the equity, for example, when we convert something into a whole government issue, you interpret the whole society issue in the whole government issue, and therefore we have to say, so this is going to be in compliance with the goals set forth there. And I think that this work needs to happen as soon as possible. At this point, I'm cautious with the numbers. I think, I'm closer to 2 million or 1.8 or so,
Okay,
2 million, but that's my
I propose we keep moving because we have a lot of numbers to go by, and we will come down to the end. I can see this is possibly on the chopping block, and we'll see how much it gets chopped, because we're going to have some major numbers to make up. More things to add, subtract, more things to take out of the chairman's mark, more things to add on. Yeah.
Just a clarification. Line 61 for the DMF team, can you make sure that an error hasn't been introduced there, perhaps by me? Because the notes seem to suggest a larger number in
About the vehicles?
Does that make sense?
It does. The ongoing maintenance
the-
cost would hit in the following fiscal year.
Got it. Perfect. All right. Just
Okay.
wanted to make sure we hadn't lost any dollars.
Yep, all right.
I only have one, I think, and it's teeny tiny, so I'm going to go ahead and say it while I've got my microphone on, which is I would like to consider a small PAYGO grant or a small investment in the Glen Carlin Library. They have had some modifications to ancient, probably historically protected shelves that had become unstable. They've made some modifications there that are working okay, but they are many years away from a full refresh. And I'd like to suggest that we invest just $20,000 to give them the run room to do a little bit of a cosmetic refresh with lighting, and the director of libraries has been supportive of that. So.
Okay, thank you. I'm okay with that. It's a small amount of money. Anything else? I do want to keep us moving. Anybody else want to do that, not want to do it? Maureen's got a thumbs up. We got 3 thumbs up.
Sure,
think
I
we
want to
go.
do it. I want to make sure that we stayed on the record. First, I'm willing to do up to 40,000 because I don't know the cost. You do. But second, we are keeping the Glen Carlin Library.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. At the moment, I'd like to keep it at 20 because we just got a lot of money we've got to cut. Okay, next thing we'd like to add, subtract.
I was just going to confirm that 20 is a good placeholder. It was 10 to 20 in
Yeah,
the
I think we'll be
director's
okay.
recommendation.
Although if we have to refurbish the historic shelves, it might be something different. Okay, more items.
Matt, no.
Go ahead.
I would like to raise something I think I've talked about with a number of you, perhaps all of you, the 1 FTE for our racial equity program in the county manager's office. I think folks know that we had 2 staff and now we are at 1 staff. And I think to me, it's really important that we continue to be deeply invested in this, and that means actionably invested. And in particular, I think one of the places that I see we could do a lot more and a lot better is in our communications and engagement. I think having a person whose job is to focus on equity and communications and engagement is really important to actually accomplishing that. I don't think it's something that's going to happen passively, and so having a job to actually get it done, to actually show that we are taking steps forward is important to me, and I think has also been expressed by the current staff we have as something that would be helpful and useful and would come in a good, would be a welcome addition to their office.
All right, I hear you. Others in favor or not? 1 thumb up here. Takas?
I'm in favor as well. I would ask whether half a position or a position kicking in after January 1st would be an option. just for reasons of making numbers square.
I'm amenable to that. I would obviously like to have them start as early as possible, but I understand that that may not be practical in this moment.
Okay. I'd propose that why don't we just put it in at 100 right now and keep moving, because we're going to have to make some cuts, and that might be one of them. All right? Okay? Madam Clerk, you got that all right? Okay. Next.
Madam Chair, I have
Matt?
one position that is a half-time position that I would propose for the county board office. I think that the balance between our excellent staff has been shown with the sort of 2 jobs at one time that many people have been doing over the past 3 weeks, is we want excellent staff. We also need the capacity for the county board office to work on, I think, on a number of different items. We have a number of different functions relative to Fairfax, relative to most other
Excuse me.
localities, particularly 240 to 250,000. We have a more limited staff. And so that we can have that balance, slight rebalancing, I would propose a half FTE, which would mean it would start in mid-year, which I think is January 1st or so. And I think that added capacity is important for us as we continue to grow as a community.
Okay. I agree we need some added capacity in the office. I will point out that we are soon, I think, to bring on someone that will be temporary at the moment to help out with Arlington 2050 and other things so that will increase the capacity of the office. And we're getting really tight on money, so I would, and that's not, we're handling that with other funds. So I would rather not do this, but where are my colleagues? This year. I mean, I can see in the future, absolutely.
Mr. DeFranco, this is half a position that you're proposing?
No, this is a half
Half year.
year. A full-time position that would start halfway through the year.
And the cost for that is approximately
60,000,
60,000,
120 next year.
so 120.
Just depends how big a hole you want to dig us into right now.
I'm happy to, if you'd like, I'm happy to provide context, but I'll let others.
Sure. There is, I mean, to me, there is absolutely no doubt that the Office of the County Board needs the staff support. It has been building over time. I had good conversations with Madam Chair, how it evolves over time, how it, got upgraded, et cetera. And I have to credit her for making the proper board office more professional and more nimble and responsive,
That goes to our clerk and
et cetera.
everybody, but thank you.
So I'm, at this point, I'm ready to entertain this in support of that, but we still need to make the numbers work.
We do. Do you want to put it in and entertain it that way, or do you want to leave it out and possibly put it back?
I would like to put it in and see how.
All right, we'll see where it goes, and at the halftime,
Yeah.
the 60. Are you there too?
Yeah, I think I am. I think being 3.5 months into this, there's a lot you learn really quickly, and it's that the CBO office does a lot with very little. And I think additional capacity and support is something I am certainly in
Okay.
favor of.
All right, so Kendra, that's line 144? Yeah, okay, all right. Next.
A question that I'd like to see if I can understand, Madam Chair, with respect to, there's 2 million allocated for reserves. In addition, how much is, I think it's, let's see, the managers, we all agree on the manager's suggestion that we have to reach the next stage for our bond agencies, which, but how much was that?
You mean how much can we
Yeah,
cut?
that
what
4
kind of
point,
close?
I don't have the,
4 point,
yeah, that gets us from, we have 5.5% in, I'll call it our core reserves, and then we have 1% in our economic/revenue stabilization fund. What I had proposed was adding that $4.3 million to get us from 1% to 1.25%. Now, the $2 million, and I'll tell you, it's always welcome, gets us to somewhere between 1.3 and 1.4%. Now let me just state, I think it's important, I think I put in the amount of money that showed that I think is a really good faith effort when we meet with the rating agencies to show that we're serious. I was asked by Ms. Cunningham at one point, if I woke up in the middle of the night and I had a dream about what our reserve should be at, you'll look at the comparable
worried about
numbers
you,
that
Mark.
we have with our other sister AAA jurisdictions. Over time, I think I'd like to work to somewhere between where we get to an overall 10% level with a mix between that core amount and the other amount. But that is not something that's going to happen right away. It has to happen over a number of years as funds are available. I think the board showing that they want to at least go that 0.25% is excellent and will really help us. If you want to do more than that, I think that's great. I'm not sure that at the end of the day, the rating agencies will distinguish that much between them, but again, it's a good goal to push towards.
But if we don't make some progress,
Yeah,
that would
and
not
that's
be
why
good.
I'm thrilled that you've included the amount that I put in.
Yeah, because.
Yeah, so I'm fully for the managers. In the last 10 years, have we ever had a situation where we use additional reserves beyond this or a percentage that is more? The additional 2 million takes us, we are AAA bond rated and have been for decades. Traditionally, we have taken this 2 million and put it into AHIF every year since I've been on the board. And so for fiscal reasons, to defer to Ms. Cunningham, and with respect to the climate, which I think is a huge priority, I think that this is, we are fiscally responsible, but I don't think we need to, at this stage, picking up what you said, we need to pay some of the other issues, and equity is one of those issues that I want to invest in. And so I would say, at least, I would like to remove one of the 2 million that is added to this. Not the managers. I want to keep all of that. I think we can still make additional fiscal progress, as you suggested, but do so at a rate that also recognizes the burning priority of the climate.
All right, so we're balancing the budget already, sort of, and what you're thinking is to take out line 99 of additional reserves. That's what you'd like to just simply zero it out.
I'd like to start by going from 2 to 1 million, because we're going to need to take other steps so that Ms. Hughes's spreadsheet cannot show a negative number.
Why don't we, I would suggest that we continue, before we kind of decide for sure on this one, why don't we continue with where we're going with the additions and see exactly how much we have to balance, and, because we're going to have
I'd
to
like to
revisit.
take my prerogative here to get an
Yep.
update from Emily on color coding. Emily?
Okay, that would be fine. I just know it's a
With
big number.
1.8 cents.
I kind of gave up a while ago, if you noticed. Go ahead. What do we got?
As the manager said, I've been color coding as we go, so if you see something in that kind of yellow gold
Yeah.
color, that's where you've made a change.
Yeah.
So when the number adds up to the bottom, we can go back up to those, anything we've talked about, and then you can make it all work.
Right. Good. All right, colleagues. More things to add?
Before we move off the reserves conversation, and because this might take a little work and digging, could we sometime during this meeting pull up the slide that shows where we are relative to our peers? I think the issue of reserves is not one that we have been irresponsible at all. We have always been extremely responsible with our reserves, but that in part because of where the climate is going and in part because of other issues, our AAA rating could be at risk in the future if we were not able to get to some number. And that was the question I had asked the manager. Maybe it's 7.5, maybe it's 10. But if we were to, if the rating agencies, who are not always predictable, were to suddenly begin raising that, we would have years where we couldn't get there fast enough, and therefore we would lose that rating, and that would be extremely costly for the county. So I think, especially in a year where we do have some one-time funding, it would be absolutely prudent to maximize what we put into reserves that can be tapped if need be, but that would get us closer to our peers and to that safe place.
And Mark, I seem to remember fairly recently we were put on a watch by one of the rating agencies.
We were not, and so,
They
but
were
when we
threatening,
were,
maybe it
yeah,
was.
we had a lot of conversations with the board over the last year. As things come up, for example, when we were having conversations about Ballston Quarter, or sometimes we want to go into the market where we went into the market for Buckingham. Did I say Buckingham? I meant Barcroft, sorry. these are important, it's important, the messages that this board sends to the rating agencies. And so I'm going to say, I can never speak for the rating agencies because, as you said, sometimes they're unpredictable, but I don't think this board has ever done anything to call into question its commitment to maintaining our AAA rating. And so it becomes a matter of judgment about what you want to do, because you can see where we're at. And often when we're meeting with the rating agencies, it's Maria's favorite time of year. She will argue that we have, as we've shown during COVID, and we showed during 9/11, we're willing to take money that rests in other funds, like AHIF, and some of our capital balances, and reallocate it. And I think that's a pitch to the rating agencies that they believe, because they know this board will take the action that's necessary.
Thank you. All right. Let's keep going on let's get all of the additions that we need to do out of the way. And if there's anything you want to take out of the chairs, Mark, let me know. But I realize we may come back to that when we're trying to balance. So any more additions?
I don't, this is one that Mr. Karantonis and I have talked about briefly, but I'm not sure where it landed. The relaunch AED program, is that one-time funding included in the mark, or do we know?
I do not believe it is, because we were doing, there's a lot in biz launch that we did, if I recollect.
The launch was different. I was not sure about relaunch. I thought I saw that in the previous draft, but maybe.
I don't think it's in, but I have been doing too much of this, so let's see if we can find it.
Madam Chair, it is in the mark. It's labeled as Biz Launch Small Business Support on line 34.
And it's the same thing.
It's the
relaunch.
same thing. It was.
Okay, it was just
labeled differently.
Okay, fine.
So for a little bit more, I think, flexibility and use also,
Okay.
if there's something
Thank
else
you.
that needs to be done.
This appropriation is, if we agree on this, I mean, this is based on a very successful, full-fledged program last year and the year before, and this just winds down the program and still can serve up to 70 small businesses. This is very essential, especially because it works on entrepreneurs, on themselves.
Right,
So that
right.
they make.
Okay, so I think it's in, and we're going to keep it in then. Okay.
Can I clarify, though, it's in at 250, and you had proposed 150. Is there any magic between those numbers that might give us
I
a few
propose
pennies?
150 for these.
And it's listed.
No,
So that's an error.
I had proposed 250. You had suggested 150 because you didn't think it was in there and you were trying to be prudent.
Yeah.
But I think you can push it a little bit more, given the
Do I hear
success
200?
that you
200?
just
Do I hear
cited.
200?
I'm more than happy to do that if the numbers support this. You know, with regards to reserves, it's not only, we're not doing that only for the credit agencies, but also commensurate with the risks that we have. Charlotte has a completely different risk profile than we do, thankfully.
Yeah. All right. More questions, comments, additions? Matt?
I think, I'll check with Ms. Cunningham, but I think I have aligned, I had a very specific, detailed 50,000 that was for outreach to the 95% of our community that is on climate. You know, most of it is not government that is producing, it's our houses and our commercial and that produce our CO2. And so 50,000, I bet we can work on language to work that out of the whatever we end up with. So good on that. Thank you.
Okay, so we won't put that in because I think it's included. I mean, the whole Empower Arlington we're hoping to do is energy resiliency for equity, with equity. Yeah. Okay, anything else? Are we ready to just comb through what we've got? Yeah. Anybody? Susan?
Mr. Karantonis, did you have an item around partnership development that you wanted to raise?
Yeah, I think it's in. I searched at the Green Valley. Wasn't it in? Because I did a.
I think it's in
It's not.
it's not in the mark, so I think you
not in
mean
the
to
mark.
move it.
I'm sorry, I was operating from the
Microphone.
raw spreadsheet.
Microphone.
I'm sorry. So I was operating from the spreadsheet that I had before, and it was still in my spreadsheet. Maybe it has.
We have too many spreadsheets, it's fine.
Okay.
It's not in the chairman's mark.
So these were $80,000 from one time for standing up or attempting to stand up a a neighborhood development partnership for Green Valley, which is a neighborhood that had it before, the John and Wanda Bonder partnership, before it became part of Bridges to Independence. So this, the idea is that the partnership will, we have had a complex system of, a complex set of challenges in Green Valley. So my idea was that the partnership would bring together different neighborhood stakeholders, the civic association, civic and faith-based groups, businesses, property owners, housing providers, and the Arlington County government that's already engaging there, with the goal to support and catalyze positive and social economic development in Green Valley and organize the placemaking events that we are already having there. And, it's us, Arlington County, who does all this work, which also costs a lot of money. The partnership could be more effective in doing that. And be a hub for neighborhood information activation support. It's a modest amount of money. It's literally an attempt to try a new pathway there. And if colleagues are amenable to trying that,
Okay. It's a modest amount of money that we don't at the moment have, but.
Well, every dollar counts.
It does, it does. Well, at this point, it does. Who else would like to include this 80,000 before we go
Well,
back?
Madam Chair, since you characterize it as an amount of money that we don't have, I will say I'll support this $80,000 and then find the money.
Okay. Ms. Cunningham, you good with it?
I can support it.
Yep, okay, it's in there. All right. Next.
And I've already had this conversation with Mr. Carantonis offline, but we will, in the guidance, have some specific goals and reports. It's intended as a pilot, really.
The guidance has to be, but thankfully, it's not a novel concept. We have had partnerships, so we are not going to invent any wheels here, so.
Okay, all right.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Ms. Cunningham very kindly reminded me of something that I think we've all talked about, that at least is worth raising, and I do want to propose for an addition. There are two items related to the jail, and one is the medical bracelets in the detention facility, which we've had some work on. I would like to continue to expand because there's the medical unit, and then there's some inmates that are not in the medical unit that are at risk. And so I would like to add 50 medical bracelets to the 12 that are already there. Now, I think that we're still trying to work on the precise number here. The numbers that I got from the jails, the sheriff's office today, was 108,000 in ongoing and 113,000 roughly in one time. The sheriff shared with me that he thinks that one of the bracelets made a significant difference with one of those remanded to our care. I do agree that we want to be modest here, but I think we need to, this is part of the safety and security of those in our care. And so I would like to add that, which is just to re-say it, it's 113,000
In ongoing.
in one time.
Oh, one time,
And 108,000 in ongoing. Sorry to do it in reverse order.
No, it's okay. It's just different, pretty different from what is here at the
And
moment.
I will
but I don't know.
hasten to say that I'm not, I would say, I think those estimates are correct, but since we're at the witching hour on this, I would propose that we put those two amounts in, and if we don't get to 50 medical bracelets, we do what we can with
All
those.
right. And what was the one time you figured that was?
One time is 113,
Okay, and 108 ongoing.
right?
Okay.
And then I don't know if, Mr. Manager, you might have any thoughts. There is a $30,000, there's a question of whether we need the opportunity for consulting services to help with the medical provision in the jail. I guess since it's a small enough amount of money and since Dr. Miller and you, this is something that into your contingency, I don't think.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, we've added money in the initial and in the top of the mark for improving that current position to a doctor position.
Yeah.
Let's get the doctor on board and see what his medical advice is, and if we need more, we'll happily do that.
Thank you.
All right, Susan?
And Madam Chair, can I at least introduce the concept of, for the sheriff, who is an independently elected leader that we budget for, might we consider putting together the pool of money, which is the staff bonuses, the medical bracelets, and then inviting some savings from the ASAP program or other locations so that the sheriff can lead as he wishes with a pool of funding, or is that a terrible idea?
Don't know.
It's not a terrible idea. It's not one I agree with, sorry, because I think that uniformed personnel in sheriff and police and fire and the limited behavioral health, this is our way of showing directly to those employees without, in my view, violating collective bargaining, that we are direct to them. And my impression from conversations with the sheriff is that this is actually what he would like, absent addressing compression, which we cannot afford.
Okay, yeah, they do not do collective bargaining, is that correct, Mark? Just double check my understanding. Yeah, it's fine, it's at the same point, it holds, yeah. Okay, more comments on this one, 50 bracelets? You good with it?
The sheriff has asked specifically for these bracelets, right?
Okay,
I mean, the interesting part, Ms. Cunningham, is that the sheriff explicitly asked for each and every of these line items as separate line items.
That's correct.
I see the logic in what you're proposing. It has also downsides because it creates, somebody can decide to spend money in a way that creates for future liabilities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we, as stewards of this money, we have a stake in how this money is managed, the specific money. I'm with Mr. DeFerranti in this at this point.
all right, I think we've gone over everything we need to. Any more? Should we get to the bottom line and figure out then what we need to do? Okay. All right, Ms. Hughes, bottom line, please. These glasses work.
Currently, the mark is overspent in one time by 3.7 million and ongoing by 246,000.
Okay. Okay. There is, I will point out, which maybe I'll ask you, Mark, about, we could postpone or reduce some of the library funding. I mean, there's already a chunk of change in there. I think that was one of the possibilities for 500,000. Do you want to talk about that, Mark, at all?
So if you remember when Diane Kresh was here, the question about wait times, we've added, I think, $600,000 in one-time money in the budget I proposed in February. This additional $500,000 would make a further investment in reducing that wait time and buying books and e-product. That's just, I know if Diane were here, she would desperately say, yes, I really want to have it. And secondly, she'd really want it to be ongoing. But at the end of the day, this is certainly up to you.
Okay, all right, I'm just pointing it out. All right, colleagues, suggest some cuts.
You framed it, suggested cuts.
Oh, I think that's where we are. I mean, you could, if you've got anything more you want to add, speak now or forever hold your peace, because.
No, I
this.
just, before we cut, I want to affirmatively share that I support moving the tax rate from 1.8 cents to 2 cents because of these additional needs. I don't think it would be responsible under the circumstances to go to the 2.5 cents that we advertised, but I do think the relative distance between 1.8 and 2, in light of the needs that we've identified, makes that investment worthwhile. But I know that's not quite the process you.
No, actually, that may be the way we should start. Would people like to start at seeing what it is at 2? I think probably.
We have that spreadsheet, so we should
We
use it.
we should show
We
where
do,
we
it's
are.
You can
Yes,
undo
I know
it.
it's simple. Yeah. So let's do that. Let's see what magic happens. It feels like magic to me. It does. She does present and it all just.
Perhaps, but we also, your points about fiscal responsibility,
Are out the window.
no, No, I think that we absolutely, if we said, in my view, if we said 2.5 without blinking, that would not be restraint
Yeah.
and responsibility.
Yeah, no, I said two doesn't give me too much heartburn. Would have liked to kept it smaller, but let's see where we are. No, it's fine.
Then the winner is.
So I went into the spreadsheet and increased the tax rate for the board, which would be a total of 2 cents, which you can see here.
Yeah.
So an additional above the manager's proposed budget of half a cent. And then that changes the bottom line mostly on the ongoing side because we generate more ongoing revenue than one time when you change the tax rate.
Right.
So you're still overspent in one time by 3.3, and then you have $727,000 of ongoing available.
Okay, all right. All right, guys. So we have about 700,000 in ongoing that we could move to one time to cover things, and then we're still short by 2.5 million, kind of? Okay, so we need to find 2.5 million in ongoing. I think that's the way I read it. Anybody else read it differently? 2.5. One time, did I say ongoing? I meant one time, yes, yeah.
If we stay at 2 cents.
If we stay at 2 cents, yes. My guess is the appetite is going to be for doing that, if I read my board correctly.
So in this budget, line item 80, I mean, now I'm a little bit confused. What was the line item of? So lower or easier candidates for that is, one favorite, which is land acquisition money, to maybe shave off 500,000 to, is $2 million is kind of the regular pace of adding to that fund.
What, no, when $2 million, given the most recent acquisitions by the board have been parcels with a house on it, and the appraised value sometimes comes between $1 and $1.5 million. It was also meant to give a little bit of a cushion. So again, I would say it has to be at least $1 million in there to have something viable. 1.5 is good. 2 million was to provide a little
Yeah.
cushion.
Question, guys, is it maybe better for the moment to try to decide what we move into ongoing from one time? I'm trying to figure out the best approach here. Or maybe if everybody's thinking about cutting, we'll just keep going. Let's just do that. All right, because then we can slide, but we're going to have to figure out what it is.
So, I mean, returning to the earlier discussions, but not forsaking all of it, I would say, we can still show added fiscal progress. I would say that, a question for the manager, how many years have we had a AAA bond rating?
I'm going to say it's at least 25. It's in the front of our budget. We always get awards for it. You should know this. It's about 25 or 30 years, and so it's been, I always like to say it's hard to get, harder to keep, but we have some fiscal policies, and you have the opportunity actually with the CIP to readopt the guidance you give to us on all our financial policies. But right now our policy is to keep moving ahead with reserves. We don't have a target, so.
Let's see, how to say this fairly. There are 3,100 counties in the country, and there are like 200 or 300 that are AAA, I think. The last time I looked at the National Association of Counties. And the manager, the specter that we are going to be in a fiscal problem and unable to keep AAA is something that some in our community have been saying for over a decade. The evidence does not support that, I will say.
Let me reemphasize this. At no time has this board or your predecessor boards ever flinched from doing what was necessary to maintain the AAA. And it's been made clear to me that was a prerequisite for me to keep my job, pretty much. And so I'm going to do whatever I can. So that money I put in the mark was, I think, a good faith down payment on that. Anything you can do above that is great. But I don't think if you were to reduce the $2 million that was added there, that somehow that would be the death knell for our AAA ratings.
Could I suggest, how about doing one, cutting it in half?
Yeah.
So we put one more in the reserves, but you
Sure.
reduce by one.
Absolutely. The challenge is that The only challenge is that we need to find another $1.5 million in one time.
Well,
And
I think Takis had suggested maybe 0.5 in that land acquisition, if you're comfortable with that, which gets us to,
I'm not comfortable with that.
excuse me?
I'm not comfortable with that. I
Okay.
think land acquisition should be going up, if not,
Okay,
as you may recall, I originally had that 2 million going to land acquisition. It moved back over to reserves.
so, I mean,
how many want to do the reserves, 2,000, no, 2 million? How many want to do all of the reserves? Take it out, the added reserves? Huh?
I'll do all, I will.
Can you say the question?
Yeah, I'm sorry, the question is, so the manager added more into the reserves, okay? And so in the chair's mark, we put in another 2, feeling that we needed to kind of keep going, and at that point, there was a lot of one-time money.
that I got,
Yeah. So the question is now, do you want to take out of the chair's mark that 2 and put it into these other things that we've done? It gets you $2 million, easily.
Yeah, I think so.
Takis?
I'm okay. I know that 4.6 are already in the county. This is what gets us to the 0.25, right? So that's, I'm comfortable with that. Actually, in my notes here, I had $1 million out of reserves.
That's what I was suggesting.
Yeah, $1 million out for now.
Then we have to find another,
We have to find another $1.5 million.
but I see you have
Million.
calculations. What else have you got?
I'm just making, I was thinking about the land acquisition, from the land acquisition, 500,000. So that's $1 million.
Susan's not comfortable with that, but
500.
does anybody else want to not land acquisition taking out?
And let me clarify why I'm
Yep.
not comfortable. Our public spaces master plan has a goal of how much land we should be acquiring, and we are far behind that goal. So again, it's sort of part of our commitment to the community. And again, I think it's, all of these things are pieces, they're somewhat interchangeable in some ways, like reserves and the acquisition fund, right? That's one of the funds you would tap in the event of an emergency. So I could put it in either place, but I do think in a year where we have this much one-time funding, in my personal household, that would require investing in reserves because you sometimes have a rainy year.
So I'm not comfortable with, I would prefer not to do the land acquisition because I think that that's a limited number. But I do have a fact question, which I would
Okay.
love to. Are we behind in our land acquisition? We're supposed to do 38 acres in 3 acres a year, and I don't think we're behind, but I'm not sure.
I mean, the way that this conversation that we're having about land acquisition is kind of a deja vu from the last appropriation that we didn't do, didn't make. I mean, different board, of course. And the modus operandi there is always said if there is an opportunity, of which there are not so many, if there is an opportunity, we generally are capable of funding finding the money, even if the actual balance of the fund is relatively low. I think that if we are, I mean, what is the balance of the fund right now? It's about $1 million or a little bit less than that.
Utilized, fully utilized.
It's fully
It's at
zero.
So I think that's
So,
the,
which
so what I think then where we've always been able to make it work, Mr. Carantonis, I think we might come back to you and say you might need to defund something else in order to do an acquisition.
if there is an opportunity, et
Right,
cetera.
right, exactly,
Yeah, and
to
this
your
is
point.
if there is an opportunity, we can shift around, based on how important this opportunity will be. And we've seen that happening a couple of times, at least in the short time I've been on this board, it happened a couple of times that we.
Well, we've always had available balances. That's the difference. We've always been able to, yeah.
So
that's the difference.
I'm comfortable in reducing that. I mean, to start with, to reduce it by 1,000, by 1,000, I say, $1 million, and then maybe also on.
For land acquisition. I want to be comfortable, but I don't think we have any money there, but I'm open to it. I just think that,
Okay, so there's not really appetite for reducing land reserves, but
Not at this
there is for
moment.
reserve reserves.
I'm-
Okay. Any appetite for going back to the 500,000 instead of the million for the affordability in the AHIF?
And if I had to choose, for example, I would definitely choose the land acquisition, because this is
Okay.
if we
All right.
have an opportunity, where here we have, it's absolutely clear that we will have the opportunity to spend the AHIF money on 30%. So we may want to take the land acquisition completely out of this budget right now and
I can't-
reinstate it if needed.
I can't support taking it fully out. I could be open to a cut, and you've suggested, it's 2 million, right?
2 million, yes.
You've suggested,
This
you
gets us-
suggested a cut of 500,000 and a cut of 1 million, and I'm open to, I would prefer 500,000, but I also mindful that I'm one of 5 board members.
Okay, so we've got those to kind of play with. Where else can we take cuts? Because we're still not quite, where else would you like to take some cuts, Maureen?
Well, so a couple of options. I don't know if we want to go back to the 3 million on climate, which is a pretty substantial number, and we can easily take some without
Okay.
hurting all of it. There could also be a conversation around the public safety bonuses being a number less than 3,000, but still a substantial number.
Seems
What
I
if we
wasn't gonna
do-
Put them in, I'm good with that, but
What if we do 500,000 out of land acquisition and 500,000 out of the 3 million? Because we will probably not spend 3 million in 1 year?
It's actually 2.6 that we are counting there, because it's, I think, unless we've done the math wrong, it's 3 million. It's just because the way the math works there. We're taking 400 of the 500,000 EV chargers and moving them over to a more general climate.
Sure,
So
then I'm
it's-
happy to
is
take
that
it from
right,
2
Ms.
points.
Hughes? It's 2.6 million.
I'm happy to take it from 2.6 to 2.1, and this is not a lack of commitment on the climate. This is an idea about how much we can spend and a desire to align the million we have in the Climate Action Fund with this new proposal. Because we don't have that, we don't yet have those aligned, right?
I think in the draft document that was circulated, there's some alignment, but there's, Mr. Karantonis and I still have some work to do to finalize it.
okay, so I'm hearing 0.5 out of climate, out of land acquisition, a lot of different ideas for that one. Maureen, where are you on land acquisition?
I think I am closest to Mr. DiFerranti in terms of I don't know that I need to be at the number we had written at the beginning, but I don't feel comfortable going to 0.
Okay, so let's maybe say 0.5 out of land acquisition, 0.5 out of climate, if that's sort of fair at the moment, which, and then of the reserves, you want to take it all out, not put anything more in, put in, if we just take $1 million and put in $1 million, we've got then $1 million, 2 million, with 0.5 in the
And
one.
we are still, based on this, 500 and something off.
Madam Chair, I have a question
Yes,
for
yep.
staff. See if I understand this right, if we get down to the bottom of the spreadsheet with those 2 changes. Not trying to rush you.
And then I wouldn't mind cutting back on the equity, the NOFA, just for those that didn't make the cut,
So with,
back to where I was, but maybe nobody else wants to do that.
I just ask if we could go down and see what we're missing?
The bottom line, you mean?
Yeah, the bottom line.
Yep, just a minute.
Once a
We're going
time.
to get there.
So as to deflect attention from Ms. Hughes while she calculates, two other trivia questions that might be helpful as we get through this list. One is on the land acquisition. Is there a way to see what the goal is and what we're tracking, because we're remembering different things? And it might be a research question, that's why I'm throwing it out now.
We just have to get it. I don't know how to get it right now in the
Okay.
next 3 minutes. And,
Okay.
you know,
Yeah, yeah,
it's
no, it's
been a goal over 10 years, not, you know, it's,
Right.
because we can't always guarantee 3 acres every
Right,
year.
we
one year we got
didn't like
7, and
re-update
Other
it.
years, we
Right.
didn't do anything, other years we
Okay.
did
It
more, you
varies.
know how it goes. It's
Okay.
The bottom was 7 acres or 6 acres.
Got it. And then the other one is AHIF. My memory is that the manager's budget has significant AHIF and AHIF-like investments larger than is normal. Can we recap those just?
Yes,
'cause
and I
we-
think if this is what you're asking about, and actually, I'm glad you brought this up because I did want to raise a point that Richard had brought to my attention. we did $15 million in my proposed budget to buy down the Barcroft debt.
Which essentially goes back,
Right.
It saves
which
AHIF.
Gives us between $700,000 and $800,000 in AHIF. Then that was in my proposed budget. We did in closeout, we already did $15 million to buy down the debt. One of the things that I'm actually going to ask, and all you have to do is sort of like nod your head slowly on this one, is that we actually not wait till July 1st to do that, because if we actually spend that $15 million now, it actually will save us a little bit
A lot more, yeah.
money.
Yep.
So I think that's what you wanted me to summarize.
So the total for Barcroft is 15. That's not two 15s, it's one 15.
Yeah, there was a 15 done in 2023 during closeout, and another 15 I'm proposing in the budget. So those keeping score at home, it took the 150 and brings it down. If you act on the second piece, take the 150 down to 120 on the loan balance at Barcroft.
And Susan, your point is that there is already a lot that's gone into AHIF this year, I think.
Yeah, in addition, in the manager's budget, there was a sizable.
Oh, yes.
I'm just
And that-
reflecting that
and
I
on
was
that-
with all of our housing leaders yesterday, and they kept saying,
Yeah,
thank you, you've done a great job this year.
Richard has that.
0.5 million was included in the manager's proposed budget for,
And that's on the high side of what we've been able to do in recent
that
years.
was, yes, that's
Okay.
the highest we've
Yeah.
funded.
So I would like to just propose that we do the reverse of what many people do, which is take 650 or 700,000 of our ongoing money and put it to reduce the imbalance in our one-time money.
Well, that's what we're planning to do, yes, and that's a good point. We should just go ahead and do that, can we? But then we have to figure out how.
Some of it can be those positions that we
Yeah,
split, right?
I think if you made the positions that you split between one-time and ongoing, that, for example, the CPHD positions.
Yeah.
That gets you some one-time money.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we eventually, we have to make it balance. And so that number, we want to finish it so that Richard, and so we don't go crazy between now and Saturday. And,
They probably will anyway.
Let them go crazy.
but
Yeah, and he's got his supply of tank, he's good.
This is going to alleviate another $150,000 probably. Here, if we put in ongoing what, would logically be in ongoing.
But 150 plus some percentage of that 726,000 brings down our total need to fix our one-time problem to somewhere around 800 or 700,000, unless my math is not right.
And
Why don't you explain what? Oh, so Emily, why don't you explain what you just did to change those numbers?
Okay. So what I just did was I just shifted both of these CPHD positions, which had been funded half with ongoing and half with one-time, to all ongoing.
Right.
Just making sure I read the intent of the board correctly there.
And can we do the same? I think there's at least one other
There was one
position,
other
the
position that we
CBO position maybe was.
The CBO position, I don't
Wasn't.
believe that line had included any one-time. It had just included ongoing for a half year.
That's correct.
But you meant that as a permanent position,
She said it was ongoing, right?
right? No.
It's on
Right,
right
but
now.
if you make it ongoing for the whole year, it won't save you anything.
my
It'll
mistake.
actually cost you more.
Yeah.
Got it.
But then,
But you,
maybe help me with this, if I got this right. Ongoing, if we took the 500 of the 593,000 in ongoing and used it to pay for our one-time expenses, we would have less of a one-time problem, which is fiscally 100% fine, because we have, the problem with some public entities is they use one-time to pay for ongoing costs.
Right. So, and I'm going to ask, one of the suggestions would be, and I'll ask Emily to speak to this, we did set aside some one-time funds for eviction prevention. I'm just suggesting this because I think,
I think that's a good one.
and 490,000.
yeah, so that might be one place to look, and Emily's going to give us the number.
Yeah, that's a very good place.
Yeah, the chairman's mark includes an additional one-time of 1.5 million for eviction prevention and 450 of ongoing, so you could shift between those two.
Yeah, what if we shifted it
Sources.
all to ongoing?
So you can,
500?
500,000.
500?
Another possibility that I was thinking it was the AHIF deep affordability to split it between ongoing and
We're out of ongoing if we take the eviction. 500.
yeah,
Go ahead.
I think the eviction prevention, numbers here are recognizing that we are still building back from COVID. And I would say my hope is that the eviction prevention number for ongoing will get closer to 0 than 450 additional here, beyond the manager's mark. We don't know that yet, but I would just, again, it's a fiscal discipline question. If we throw more in it this year, will we forget or have a hard time remembering?
Not when you're looking for money, you won't.
I don't think we'll forget it. And one of the things I think, and you've all been briefed on this, which is that, and it was interesting to me, the incremental dollars to provide stability and security are better spent in the eviction prevention program. It may be that our eviction prevention program is picking up something that we might want to end up having picked up by our housing grant program.
Right.
So I think the opportunity to see how that's going and rebalance it, but I don't think it's a mistake to put more of that in ongoing, because I think it's a need.
Yeah, I don't think, I hear what you're saying, but I think next year, when you're looking to balance things and figure out what it is, that would be looked at. I wouldn't.
I think the other opportunity would be, I think our library director would not object to some ongoing funds for collections.
Oh, the ongoing trust for,
To move some of the
oh, she'd
one-time
love
to
that.
ongoing.
Yeah, moving that, yeah, right. Don't tell her I offered the other idea, just tell her.
We'll keep it a secret. But we're going to run out of.
I think that gets us bound down to maybe just what we need to then find in one time, which is easier.
So just with the change to eviction prevention, the one-time is now overspent by 626,000, and the ongoing, there is 93,000 available.
Yes, so then can we look at the library? I think that's what we were going to look at next.
That won't help now because.
It won't?
It's a net, we're now working on the net negative, that's about 550, right? So we need to carve out somewhere, either one time or ongoing, another 500. Can you go back to the bottom line, Ms.
Wait a
Hughes?
minute.
When you get a chance.
Okay, and so I know Diane's not listening.
Yeah,
One thing to do is to take out the one-time add to the book budget of the 500,000, but put in the balance of ongoing into the
Right.
budget.
right.
But that's just a suggestion. And it's only because Diane isn't listening.
Not listening?
It's not enough money, it's 20,000.
No, I know, but.
There's no FTE.
Okay.
That's it.
I just want to make sure that wasn't
It's good.
There's a,
So, Madam, I'm sort of,
We're getting there.
yeah, I'm mindful of fiscal restraint and also the land discussion, but for the remaining 500,000 or 600,000, those are the two places that I would prioritize without trying to get in the way of your points on fiscal restraint and discipline and Ms. Cunningham's points on land acquisition, but that's just my thinking, so you have.
I'm sorry, what was it you wanted to take it from?
So if we're one time, if we're short $500,000 or $600,000, I would take half. I would use 300,000 from land acquisition and 300 more thousand from the
reserves.
the additional reserves, and that's how I'd
Yep.
finish the one time.
Okay.
there will be an opportunity to maybe shave 100,000 from the NOFA because the difference is 900,000, not a million exactly, so.
I would also note that we all hope that the 500,000 to resolve the space issue in the courts building is
Are not going to be needed.
is less. I won't.
I wouldn't count on that.
I'm hoping, but I know that that's still to be.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
So
There was one more possibility that one of my colleagues mentioned, which was a small haircut to the one-time retention bonuses.
Right, she did mention that.
I am actively trying to do some rogue math here.
Oh, the road math.
Staff will do that for you.
No, it's fun to
Yeah,
do it
but I got
yourself.
a computer and I got a head and.
If we put the bonuses at two,
If they go to about
2,750.
2,500, you probably get there because I think the total for the bonuses are around 3.9 million, and that's for 3,000. So each thousand's about 1.3 million.
So that could work.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the very quick math that I did, if we did just 250 less instead of 500 less, that gets us about 328,000. So if we doubled it to 500 and in total then 2,500 in the bonuses, we'd be at the 600.
Yeah.
And you just need to get us close on the bottom. We can,
I know, you can figure some things out, I get that. So, thank you, Richard. So are folks okay with the bonuses making them 2,500 is where we were, Maureen? Is that what you were thinking?
I was thinking 2,750.
2,750, okay.
Which would get us halfway, and then we can keep scrabbling over the rest.
What if we do 2750 and then we look for, then we cut in half the land and the reserve shaves?
No.
Oh, we haven't done anything with
Well, so-
libraries yet.
Overdrive, yeah.
So
Yeah,
we
yeah.
can apply that to the libraries as well. It's scalable as well. So
Yeah.
250,
let
200.
Emily work her magic. Are you okay? Getting-
So
Yeah.
All right, so
Just to confirm before I start making changes on the spreadsheet.
Yes.
We're taking the bonuses from 33,000 to 2,750.
Yes.
And then you want to also then look at libraries, but I'll do the bonuses first.
Bonuses first.
I would also take out from no further 100,000 there because based on the calculation staff here, they are,
Which,
you don't,
no,
okay?
I think, let's let everyone some deep breaths.
Have you heard of mindfulness?
I think we should point out that this uses
I said
stronger
deep
than
breaths.
Steve
Have we heard of
Kornacki.
mindfulness?
Oh, mindfulness.
Now, with.
Be present in the moment, but I'm not
the
sure I'm
200
happy that's right where we are, right?
So
This is fine.
with the new calculation of the bonuses, what is the,
We have to wait. She's not done.
We're waiting. We're going to let Emily do her work. We're all going to practice deep breathing while Emily does her.
So after changing the bonuses, and I haven't changed the description here yet, but the one time is overspent by nearly 300,000, and you have 93,000 still in ongoing after changing just the bonuses.
Okay, so my recommendation would be that you take the library number,
Yeah.
and rather adding 500,000 in, you take out 297 of one time and replace it with 93,000 of ongoing.
Yes. And then libraries is almost whole.
Well, they're not whole, but they might be slightly happier with more ongoing.
Sounds good. It's a trade-off. All right, colleagues.
And we do a recap?
Oh, absolutely. We will do a recap.
Are you saying you don't remember everything that
Almost all of it, but not all.
Emily does? Yeah.
Actually, we're only a little past 5 o'clock. This is great. Excuse me? Emily.
this is the rounding, this is the round, this is the rounding.
Remember I told you it really was magic?
Add that to the reserves.
Oh, all right. I think so. I think we should wait till Matt comes back and we should go through the whole, scroll through the whole thing.
Let's talk about, should we look at the school bottom line?
Let's just,
Yeah, if you can go to the line that shows what, with all this, what schools is doing.
I mean, that comes out in the end, too. I just don't want to talk about it too much.
For good reason.
We're good. That's back.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. We just, did you
Just
see
giving,
your-
I wanted to give Emily a minute here. Just, I did want to know for the public, what we're going to do is we take this information and we move it into the appropriations resolution. We will post board reports. Richard, tell me when.
Whenever you would like them.
Okay. We will leave the tax rate, the county manager's recommended tax rate is going to stay what it is, but if you take this current action, you would be adopting the 2 cents rather than 1.5 cents. We'll leave it blank on the to be determined, but the appropriations resolution will reflect all the numbers associated with a 2 cent increase to the tax rate.
Okay.
And we will post those no later than Thursday,
We will do our best. We'll work through everything and depending on.
certainly before Saturday.
Yes.
Good.
Okay, so if you want, we can walk through, start at the very top again of the spreadsheet and walk through everything that we have changed. So I'll let Emily do that.
So the first change you come to is the tax rate, increasing above the manager's proposed 1.5 cents by 1/2 cent for a total tax rate increase of 2 cents. The next change was shifting one-time to ongoing for eviction prevention to end up with an additional 1 million in one-time and 950,000 in ongoing, keeping the
that's my
total the
favorite.
same. A change in the library collections. This was 500,000 of one time. It's now 202,525. And adding ongoing funding of 93,122. The next change is land acquisition, decreasing it by 500,000 to 1.5 million. The next two go together, restoring the associate planner positions in CPHD, switching those from half one-time and half ongoing to all ongoing.
Those positions have more changes than anybody.
The climate action plan investments is reduced by 500,000 from 3 million to 2.5. The AHIF funds for the 30% AMI buy-down pilot goes from 500,000 up to 1 million of one time. The nonprofit equity NOFA goes from 350,000 to 900,000 in one time. The additional reserves decreased from 2 million of one time to 1 million. That's in addition to what the manager had put forward. Bonuses of 2,750 for our uniform staff in fire, police, and sheriff. The DHS retention bonus for 24/7 staff is added for 137,000 of one time. One-time funding added for a library refresh at Glen Carlin of 20,000. The addition of an FTE in the county manager's office for race and equity program communications and outreach, that's ongoing money, and 1 FTE. The addition of a half year of funding for a 1.0 county board position of 60,000 of ongoing. The addition of one-time funding in the amount of $80,000 for a Green Valley Neighborhood Partnership Initiative. And the expansion of medical bracelets for the sheriff's office, going from 12 bracelets to 50 bracelets. That's 113,000 of one time and 108,000 of ongoing.
All right. Yeah, are you changing the bonuses? Yeah. She just hadn't gotten there, I know, that's fine. The numbers are right. Okay.
Madam Chair, can
Yes.
I recommend that we add the word pilot to the last two items there? Both the medical bracelets and the Green Valley, just to remind us next year that they're
To be looked at?
to be thinking about results before we further invest.
Okay, they are one time, so they will roll out. Is that all right?
We can catch it in guidance
They
too.
will be by definition scrutinizable next year. The medical bracelets less so because this is a system. This is
Yeah,
not
I wouldn't
only-
tend to call that one a pilot, just because they're already there. We already have
Yep.
some, so I think we're okay. All right. So colleagues, the next thing is budget guidance, and we will be emailing, texting, talking for the next few days, all right?
So
And I
for,
think Takas, I am putting in charge of pulling that one together.
okay.
I did send him a rough draft, by the way. I didn't
Okay,
let you start with
so
that.
we will start with that. I will post it at some shareable place.
Okay.
We'll begin.
Check with Minchow that you can do
Yeah.
that. I don't know
Oh,
if it's
yeah.
shareable, I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, correct. Even new technologies are
We have, yes,
Need to be tamed.
yeah, yeah. It'll constitute a meeting if we're. Okay. Are we all okay? I don't know if, excuse me? Oh, good. Glad you had fun. All right. Are we all set? Everybody's nose is looking too worried. Richard, we're good? Thumbs up? All right. Yes?
Tongue supply is critically low.
And I'm a little disappointed you didn't fund it, so.
I know, I've talked about a Tang account. I have. All right, I think we're all set, colleagues. We will be adjourned. We will do a lot of work as we do with guidance, and we will be back together in this room 8:30 Saturday morning. I think not before. Am I missing a meeting?
A big thank you to you, Madam Chair, and to the 3 staff, the 3 to 6 to 12 staff who are working nonstop on this.
Yeah.
Big thank you to you and to them, because you guys have been doing 2 jobs, so thank you.
Absolutely. Did you notice my request that the therapy dog come in? Maybe on Saturday, this would be good.
We're looking into that.
I hope so, because I think everybody could use a therapy dog. All right, everybody, we are adjourned for the moment. Thank you so very much. All right, guys.